You and I first interviewed 16 years ago this week about Dollhouse.
It's amazing. It's our anniversary.
Yeah.
We should have like champagne or something.
Let's go back 4.5 years ago when Severance was probably first presented to you. What all did they reveal to you about the role you're going to be playing?
Well, when I first saw the script, it was when I auditioned for it. And I only had 2 or 3 pages and absolutely no context about who this person was, and she's saying the most random, bizarre things. Finally, there was some interest, which, you know, I was thrilled about, mainly because of who was involved. Just such extraordinary people,
yes.
Like incredible. I met Ben on a Skype call, and we weren't sure if I was able to do it because of Jurassic World Dominion, which was shooting in London. And so he started explaining a little bit to me about like the premise of the show and like what her role was, Miss Casey's role.
So they basically say she's the company therapist.
Right, exactly. And he finally, reluctantly, because it wasn't set in stone yet, told me the season 1 cliffhanger.
She's alive!
So that was my first exposure to the show.
What sort of direction did they give you for the early scenes? Like, she's warm but not familiar, or...
You know, I'm sure you've talked to some of the others about this. There was a lot of finding it, and Ben's so wonderful because he's an actor, you know, working as a director with an actor, there's an empathy there and a curiosity and wanting to try a lot of different things. One of the most remarkable moments was that he played this music, which he already knew he was going to have in the show in that moment, and it really helped inform me of the pace and the tone. And it was, I think, my second day on set, and John Turturro is sitting opposite me, and Ben is directing. And just for the first like half hour, I think I was extraordinarily nervous to be in this situation with just these, you know, these powerhouses. And obviously just a huge fan. And I remember Ben allowing me this time to just take some deep breaths and sink into it. So I remember really playing with that with him and just taking different notes, but having a real baseline for her voice and where her voice sat. That was, for me, something that I worked on a lot. She's very different to who I am, but there also had to be elements of who this Gemma woman is there a little bit, you know. So it's finding the balance.
That's 10 points off. You have 90 points remaining.
Points?
Please don't speak.
Jumping ahead to season 2, episode 7, you not only played Gemma, but a large number of innies. What was your first reaction when that was all laid out for you?
I didn't know about that episode until we'd started filming season 2. And I was noticing that I wasn't in the scripts very much. And finally, Dan Erickson, who's just an extraordinary talent, mentioned, like, look, we have this episode. We're going to go into all this detail and explain where Gemma is now and who she was, and this is what it's going to be. I finally got the script, and, you know, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, like, I didn't feel the pressure. Not just because I wanted to do a good job for everybody and, you know, as I always do, but for the fans of this show. It's an intensity that I haven't experienced, the amount of attention and love they have for the show. Obviously, that was my initial feeling, and then it was just about fleshing it out. And we had a very long break between me reading it and then ultimately filming it due to the strike. I got to sit down with Jessica and have a conversation with her and, you know, talk to Dan and Mark about the script. And we were really fortunate enough to actually go to the house and have rehearsals. During that rehearsal, things did change a little bit. It's just such a privilege to be able to have that opportunity to really dive into the work with that leadership, and with Adam, who's such a wonderful actor, it's not very common that you get to do that in television.
And then they said, oh, by the way, the evil doctor who's going to be tormenting you, it's going to be played by teen icon Robbie Benson.
Right, exactly. Well, I'm from Kathmandu, so I didn't know who he was. We did not get exposure to Robbie Benson, but I did learn very quickly that he was an absolute legend and is antithetical to the character he's playing. He is the warmest, kindest person one could meet. A lot of the time, he ended up standing in for himself just to like really get into that moment. And then I felt like, well, I should stay here too. And so then we were both like just frozen, like letting the lighting department do their thing. He was just wonderful to work with.
And watching episode 7, I'm getting big Dollhouse flashbacks. Did that experience playing Sierra, an actor who's basically programmed to be somebody different each day, did that kind of help you with episode 7 and the many innies?
There are similarities, absolutely. It's slightly different with the severance procedure because I think that parts live in the subconscious and they're versions of oneself. They're not such a huge departure as was
the Dollhouse
in
actors.
Dollhouse.
They were just completely rebooted each
Right,
day.
exactly. It's a slightly different technology. Maybe Dollhouse is the sequel in terms of the tech, right? They refined it somewhat. But I think what it did do and what all the things that I've done leading up to this moment is just give me the endurance to really commit myself and jump in and do the extraordinary long hours and be flexible and take direction and be malleable. I think sometimes people can be precious about the work, and I think that Dollhouse and everything I'd done up to that point was just training for letting go and trusting the process.
You've told us that in the finale, when Gemma sees Mark back away from the door at the end, that she recognized that he's been severed. What does she make of Helly, though? Like, does she know anything of Helly or Helena, or is that just a complete stranger to Gemma in the moment?
I think that moment is so full of intensity and her realization, because if you think about Gemma's timeline at the end, spoiler alert to anybody who's listening, but if you think about Gemma's timeline, she's in a hallway, she's in an elevator, and now she's outside, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have that incredible moment for Mark and Gemma, that reunion. And then she's outside. So that happens very quickly, and she's just like, the adrenaline's going. She's trying to get through to him. But I think the person at the end of the corridor, it's somewhat irrelevant, in more so just that he's walking away from her. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think she makes a quick realization and she's just trying to get through to him there.
What questions linger for you?
There are so many questions, and it's so alive in the social media space, in the fan space.
We still don't know if Gemma was like targeted.
Right,
was she in an actual car crash and they saw an opportunity, or were they going to snatch her regardless?
Right, and that's what makes it exciting. I think one of the things that I've really come to learn to enjoy about this show is living in the not knowing. And I think, that's what's exciting for the fans too, is that there are so many questions that they want answered. And I just have complete faith in Dan and the entire team around this show to come up with something that's extraordinary and that won't let anybody down.
Without spoiling anything, of course, have Dan and Ben told you anything about the future?
Absolutely not.
You're just bearing it?
Oh my gosh, I
nothing.
have absolutely no idea. I wish I did, but I'm trying to embrace, like I said, just living in the not knowing and being excited.
What about knowing about practical matters? Like, we know there's going to be season 3. Do you know when the cameras are going to be up and running?
No, not yet.
No
but
idea.
I am waiting with bated breath.
But they've said it's not going to be another 3 years between seasons.
That's
said
what
that
they've
much.
been saying. Yeah, absolutely. There were so many things out of our control. The strike was a very, very long one, and it was a very difficult time in our industry for everybody. But you just have to trust that it's all going to work out. And in a way, maybe it was good that there was a long time, because it gave a lot of runway for other people to find the show and discover how just extraordinary it is. So, sometimes we just have to trust the universe.